It's not a date. It's definitely not a date.
Jules Winfield, Mace Windu, and Nick Fury walk into a bar one day, and the bartender says to them, "Elijah Price, Glass is being filmed in another set." Yes, today we will tell you about the life of a theater and film actor who almost doomed himself to a sad end with a terrible addiction. About a shy and influential fighter for rights, and a talent who created himself from scratch, becoming the most profitable Hollywood star, though not without a bit of luck. You're watching Biographer, and our hero today is the main motherfucker of the world of cinema, Samuel L. Jackson. Get comfortable, and let's get started. Samuel Leroy Jackson was born on December 21, 1948 in Washington, D.C. He became the only child in the family of Elizabeth Harriet Montgomery and Roy Henry Jackson. But it was difficult to call the family happy. Samuel grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee with his mother, while the father of the family lived separately in Kansas City, Missouri, and eventually died of alcoholism. He and his father had only met twice in their lifetime. Samuel was raised by his mother and maternal grandparents, Edgar and Pearl Montgomery. He grew up a shy and modest child in a not very prosperous area. There was no running water in the family house. Elizabeth worked at a factory, after which she got a job as a buyer of materials for a psychiatric hospital. Based on DNA tests, Samuel's roots partly belonged to the Benga people of Gabon, and many years later, in 2019, he became a naturalized citizen of Gabon. But many more years passed before that, and in the meantime, he studied in racially segregated schools, changing them one by one. He was engaged in playing wind instruments such as French horn, piccolo, trumpet, and flute in the school orchestra. At the same time, he developed a stutter as a child. You may be surprised, but Samuel learned to deal with stuttering simply by imagining himself as someone else who doesn't stutter. One word also helped him in this, which became a catchphrase for Samuel and eventually associated with him, motherfucker. I stuttered for a long time, and it actually did help me stop. It was spontaneous on how I discovered it. It was the word that hit me, and the word that kind of helped me stop stuttering with the d-d-ds and b-b-bs. He still uses this swear word to overcome the speech block, as he still stutters sometimes. During the same time period, Jackson joined a local acting group to earn extra points in class, and became seriously interested in acting. In an interview with LA Village View, he recalled, "As a kid, I loved Treasure Island. My favorite pirate movie was The Crimson Pirate with Burt Lancaster. When I was a kid, we played pirates in our neighborhood. Not sissy stuff like Captain Hook, but serious pirates." He also imagined himself as a participant in his favorite westerns, replacing horses with bicycles. This hobby was influenced by his Aunt Edna, an elementary school performing arts teacher who was the first person who introduced him to acting at the time. In general, Samuel owes many things in his life to her. Edna made him do a lot of things that he didn't want to do as a child. Thanks to her, Samuel learned to read at about 2 years old. Edna's influence helped Jackson stand out among his peers at a young age, but his mind did not make him popular among other children. He was so advanced for his age that he often got into trouble, surpassing older students, answering from the end of his aunt's class. When a kid couldn't answer a question in her class, she would go, "Sam?" and I would answer the question, and then I would have to fight all lunchtime, because all the fourth graders would go, "Oh, you think you're smart?" So I was a good fighter and a smart kid. And since Edna taught performing arts, and she never had enough boys for roles, she literally made Samuel act, which installed in him an interest in the theater. However, he did not take a serious part in the theatrical world until he entered college. Samuel soon graduated from Riverside High School in Chattanooga and initially intended to get a degree in marine biology, enrolled at Morehouse College in Atlanta. The policy of segregation of the country in the middle of the 20th century underwent a number of changes, and the events had a considerable impact on Samuel. As a child, he didn't really understand politics, but everything changed when he got to Morehouse. When Jackson entered college in 1966, the number of American troops in Vietnam had reached 400,000. In July of the same year, American bombers began air raids for the first time. The Vietnam War was raging, but neither he nor his friends paid attention to what was happening in Asia until it affected his family. We were like, "What war?" And then my cousin, who was my age, got killed in 1967. I came to a realization that we were being groomed to be something that I didn't necessarily want to be. He immediately became a decidedly anti-war person, which radicalized him against the establishment and racial discrimination. It is worth saying that Samuel himself could go to war, and in order not to join the army, he entered college. Students were protected from conscription at this age, but his cousin's death was not the last to affect him. Samuel was a sophomore at Morehouse when former student Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in Memphis in 1968. The event shocked the whole of America. King was a great fighter for the rights and freedom of Black Americans in Atlanta. Samuel attended his funeral in Atlanta as one of the ushers. He then traveled to Memphis, Tennessee to join a protest march for equal rights. As he later admitted, "I was angry about the assassination, but I wasn't shocked by it. I knew that change was going to take something different, not sit-ins, not peaceful coexistence." Meanwhile, the Black Power movement was actively gaining momentum. Students' anger over the control of the institution by the white governing body made him take part in the action. In 1969, Samuel and several other students took hostage the members of the Board of Trustees of Morehouse College. There was Martin Luther King Sr. among them. Demanding reform of the school curriculum and management, they eventually achieved changes. The college agreed to change its policy, but Samuel was charged with a second-degree felony and eventually found guilty of unlawful imprisonment. He was suspended from school for 2 years because of these actions and his criminal record. He decided to return to Atlanta, where he met Stokely Carmichael, H. Rap Brown, and others active in the Black Power movement. He felt his importance in what was happening, but when the group started acquiring weapons, his mother was notified by the FBI that her son could die in a year if he remained a member of the group. Samuel's mother immediately sent him to Los Angeles before he got involved in any serious armed clashes. By the way, according to him, he had nothing to do with the Black Panther Party, although he participated in the struggle for equality in the 60s, and he was not surprised by the obvious twist of the United States to intolerance. He doesn't think it's some kind of anomaly. People were not so open in the past, when it was politically incorrect to support some ideas that they can now express out loud. Recalling his youth in a 2018 interview, Samuel said, "I hear things like 'Make America Great Again,' and by 'again,' they mean going back to the day when a white man held all the power, women were home cooking and having babies, and the rest of the races were subservient in some way. There are a lot of things that can't and won't be changed because of the blood and the effort that was put in during the civil rights movement, but there are a lot of dynamics that are trying to be put back into place because of that." Being detached, he got a job as a social worker in Los Angeles. At the same time, Samuel realized that he was not particularly interested in biology. He was briefly interested in architecture, but in the end, Samuel decided to connect his life with acting. In order to specialize in drama, he had to attend all the theater courses at Spelman School at college. There, he met LaTanya Richardson, with whom he struck up a warm relationship. But we tell more about that later. Focusing on what would soon become his career, Jackson helped found the Just Us Theater Company in Atlanta. The main part of it consisted exclusively of Black actors. So acting became Samuel L. Jackson's vocation, and returning to college, he received a bachelor's degree in drama, graduating in 1972. In the end, he had to leave the troupe after graduating from college. And soon after that, Samuel and LaTanya moved from Atlanta to New York to build their careers there and start an adult life. But speech could not be about instant success and fame for Samuel L. Jackson in those years. His path started from the very bottom, and for the next 2 decades, he tried to break through to success. The young actor played in so many projects that it is simply impossible to tell about them in the timing of one video. Therefore, we initially skipped some parts, focusing on the most noticeable and significant ones in his life. Since the early 70s, Samuel has begun to participate in theatrical productions and made his debut as an adult for the first time in Weilbrecht's darkly satirical classical opera, The Threepenny Opera, compensating for the lack of singing skills with his acting. He also appears in the plays Home and A Soldier's Play. The latter served as the prototype of the 1984 film adaptation. He also appeared in several television pictures, and his film debut is considered to be the blaxploitation independent film Together for Days in 1972. The movie told about the relationship between a black man and a Caucasian woman and how their friends and families reacted to it. Over time, the film was re-released under the title Black Cream. After moving from Atlanta to New York in 1976, Jackson spent almost a decade appearing in various theatrical productions. For example, there were the premieres of The Piano Lesson and 2 Trains Running at the Yale Repertory Theater. And the success of the production of A Soldier's Play gave him an acquaintance with the director Spike Lee, who in the late 80s will shoot him in inconspicuous roles in the comedies School Days and Do the Right Thing. Unlike work in the cinema, which did not bring immediate remuneration to the actor, he treated the theater with warmth. Theater is such a healthy exchange of energy between the audience and the actors. I can sense the audience members sitting forward, sighing, or getting carried along with the momentum of what we're doing. So it's very invigorating. In addition, in the mid-70s, Samuel joined the New York-based pioneering theater group NEC, which helped launch the careers of Lawrence Fishburne and Denzel Washington. There, by the way, he met another famous actor, Morgan Freeman. If you are interested in learning about the life path of this talented person, write about it in the comments under the video. Also, do not hesitate to write the name of any other idol. We carefully read everything and listen to the subscribers' comments. During this period of time after graduating from college, Jackson developed the bad habit of using white powder, which quickly got out of control. According to Samuel, he even dabbled with hallucinogens in his university years. I was a hippie, you know. I was taking acid and listening to Jimi Hendrix. I was a drug addict, and I was out of my mind a lot of the time, but I had a good reputation. Showed up on time, knew my lines, hit my marks. According to the actor, he regularly rehearsed and acted under the influence of banned substances. He was at the theater and fancied himself as Oliver Reed. It was partly hereditary because his father died of alcoholism, but he went even further. He drank and used something more harmful to health. In order to somehow have a financial income during the auditions, Jackson got a job as a night security guard in the Manhattan Plaza apartment complex, where famous artists previously lived. He also worked for 3 years as a stand-in for Bill Cosby on The Cosby Show. Morgan Freeman was his mentor throughout all these years and in all the early projects, like the romantic comedy Coming to America starring Eddie Murphy, where Samuel had an inconspicuous role. By 1990, Samuel was lucky and he got a minor role in a major project of the famous director Martin Scorsese, Goodfellas, playing the role of real-life mafia associate Stax Edwards.
Frenchie and Joe Buddha had to round up the workers. Johnny Roast Beef had to keep them all tied up and away from the alarms.
This is a lot.
Even Stax Edwards got in on it.
But when the film was released, his addictions were already unbearable. This prevented Samuel from staging 2 plays on Broadway. Other actors took his place. Jackson repeatedly found himself in situations where his life could end. Perhaps this would have happened if it weren't for love. Being a student, Samuel L. Jackson met his future wife, actress LaTonya Richardson. When he attended Morehouse, which was historically a men's college for blacks, LaTonya attended Spelman College, a women's college affiliated to Morehouse. And if Samuel aspired to become a film actor, then LaTonya connected her life with the theater stage. Their romantic relationship began to twist, and they moved to New York together. LaTonya Richardson supported her boyfriend in all his endeavors and motivated him to continue making his way into the cinema. They got married in 1980, and 2 years later the couple had a daughter who was named Zoe. But for a long time, the spouse did not imagine the scale of her lover's problem, until one day when she found Samuel lying unconscious on the kitchen floor. The cocaine was cooked, but I'd never smoked it. That was the first time my wife LaTonya realized I was doing something that was greater than just smoking weed and drinking. Then the actor realized that it was time to change his lifestyle, and his family took him to a rehabilitation clinic in New York. To date, the couple has been married for more than 40 years, but not all these years have been happy. In an interview with The Telegraph, Jackson admitted that his days in the New York theater, fueled by drugs, were a real failure in their marriage. I was not affectionate, I was not associative, and I was kind of crazy in a way that I regret, he said of his relationship with LaTonya and their daughter Zoe. But he changed and apologized to both of them. The couple was determined to make everything work for their child. One of the reasons LaTonya and I stayed together was that we felt that Zoe deserved 2 parents in the same place, because my wife was also the product of a broken home. Samuel L. Jackson's life improved dramatically when he gave up banned substances. He started filming in the movie Jungle Fever, directed by his old friend Spike Lee, just a week after the end of his rehabilitation, and ironically played a character with addiction, Gator Purify.
Gator, dance for me. Do that new move I like.
It was a breakthrough film for the actor who had just sobered up. The doctors were afraid of such an image for him and thought that Samuel would fall off the wagon. The actor didn't do this. According to Jackson, the role was cathartic for him. And not just for him. Samuel's performance was so highly appreciated that the jury of the 1991 Cannes Film Festival added a special supporting actor award to him. Since then, he has managed to stay on this path. And a new hobby came to replace addictions, which finally saved the life of Samuel L. Jackson. It was golf, and the actor is grateful to this sport for that. The actor got hooked on the game when he became clean, and regular games helped him stay in this state. According to him, quote, "It is something he can do that occupies time he would otherwise have spent doing very destructive things." In an interview with The Independent, the actor said that it's definitely filled a space in his life When he had to start dealing with his problems, he was worried he wouldn't find something satisfying beyond work and family to keep him going. To understand, Samuel doesn't just roll a ball around the lawn for fun. He is a serious player and once won against Tiger Woods.
You once beat Tiger Woods in golf. That can't be true.
Complete accident.
What?
Well, the first time I ever played St. Andrews, they paired me with him in what was the Dunhill golf tournament. And I was a 16, so they gave me my 16 shots, and I shot 78 because he said, follow me. And I stayed as close to him as I could, and I shot 78.
Wow.
Which means I beat him by about 8 strokes.
Golf quickly became part of Jackson's daily routine, and according to the actor, there is even a clause in his shooting contracts that allows him to play golf 2 times a week. It is known that he also combines rounds with his rehearsals. The actor admitted that he used his lightsaber as a golf club during the filming of Star Wars Episode 2. I had to practice whenever I could because there were 109 movements to learn. One of those moves is similar to a golf swing, used to block an overhand blow. But we'll talk about Star Wars later. After his first notable role, Samuel played several more minor roles before becoming a really famous actor. He appeared in the comedy Strictly Business, playing the role of the post office caretaker, Monroe. In 1992, the actor played in the crime thriller Juice with the legendary Tupac Shakur, for whom it was an acting debut. Also that year, Jackson played the minor role of Lieutenant Commander Robbie Jackson in the thriller Patriot Games, in which Harrison Ford starred. Both Juice and Patriot Games were box office successes, but most importantly, his career went uphill. The following year, the actor appeared in his first major role in the parody comedy Loaded Weapon 1, together with Emilio Estevez. Samuel played the role of Sergeant Wes Luger, a parody of the character from Lethal Weapon. Roger Murtaugh, played by Danny Glover.
You tried this herb? I use it.
Head and shoulders? But Sarge, you don't have dandruff.
I know.
The film mainly parodied the first 3 parts of Lethal Weapon and also included references to Basic Instinct, Die Hard, Dirty Harry, Rambo, The Silence of the Lambs, Wayne's World, and 48 Hours. Critics did not appreciate the humor of the film and noted its secondary nature against the background of the same Lethal Weapon 3. However, it was quite successful at the box office and the audience liked it. The film grossed $51 million with a budget of $8.2 million. By the way, there were quite a few cameos in the film, and one of them was played by Bruce Willis, with whom Jackson was repeatedly brought by fate. In addition, in 1993, Jackson played with Nicolas Cage in the buddy action comedy film Amos and Andrew, directed by E. Max Fry. The title of the film referred to the title of the sitcom Amos and Andy. The plot told about the purchase of a summer house on a predominantly white island by a rich black American playwright, Andrew Sterling. The picture got mediocre reviews by both critics and viewers, collecting just under $10 million domestically.
Freeze! Please! Drop your weapon!
What car?
Put it down!
Okay, they're up.
Drop your weapon!
Also that year, the actor played in the science fiction film Jurassic Park by the famous director Steven Spielberg. Samuel got the minor supporting role of Ray Arnold, the chief engineer of the park. In the film, Arnold played a smaller role than in the novel of the same name by Michael Crichton, but retains the same personality and worldview, commenting on his future risky actions with the phrase,
Hold on to your butts.
The phrase "hold on to your butts" immediately became a popular movie quote. By the way, one of the reasons why Jackson's character had less screen time than in the novel was Hurricane Iniki. The fact was that a hurricane hit Hawaii in September 1992 and destroyed the scenery for the long death scene of Jackson's character. According to this, the death of the engineer was confirmed only by the hand that fell on Ellie's shoulder in the barn. It doesn't seem to make sense to talk about the success of Spielberg's Jurassic Park. The picture has become a cult classic and has grossed more than $1 billion at the box office with a budget of $63 million. This guaranteed its continuation, and Samuel L. Jackson has become a little more noticeable and more desirable actor for many directors. For example, he appeared in the famous director Tony Scott's romantic crime film True Romance, shot according to the script of the young and not yet very famous Quentin Tarantino. Yeah, Jackson again played a minor role, but the film starred a bright ensemble cast. Christian Slater, Patricia Arquette, Dennis Hopper, Val Kilmer, Gary Oldman, Brad Pitt, and Christopher Walken.
What you motherfuckers talking about?
Boys say you don't be eating pussy.
Drexel. Shit. Any nigga say he don't eat pussy's lying his ass off.
I heard that. Well, hold on a second. Big D, you saying you eat pussy?
Yeah, motherfucker, I eat everything.
And although Quentin Tarantino has never been on the set of the film during its filming, over time it became clear that this was a very Tarantino's film that was part of his own multiverse. Samuel's character had little screen time, but Quentin liked the actor's performance and decided to include him in this next film. It is worth saying that having played in more than 24 films, Samuel L. Jackson was still not a superstar and did not make the A-list of actors. He continued to get minor roles, although he appeared in major projects. Finally, that very next role in Tarantino's new film brought them into the big game. The script of Pulp Fiction included scenes that were written for true romance and weren't shown in the film. In 1993, Tarantino added new episodes, wanting to see Samuel in the title role Jules Winfield, Vincent Vega's criminal partner working for Marcellus Wallace. At that time, the actor was not sure that Quentin even remembered what the character he played in the last movie was, but he did. One day, Samuel got a call and was told that Quentin Tarantino wanted to have dinner with him ever since he saw Jackson in Jungle Fever. It turned out that they have a very similar taste in cinema, and they like a lot of the same pictures. Quentin said that he had a role for the actor and gave him the script of Pulp Fiction. Jackson was surprised to learn that the role was written specifically for him. To know that somebody had written something like Jules for me, I was overwhelmed, thankful, arrogant, this whole combination of things that you could be, knowing that somebody's going to give you an opportunity like that. The company TriStar, which Tarantino worked with, refused to make the movie. It found the film too confusing, draggy, and violent. Then Quentin brought the script to Miramax, a former independent studio recently acquired by Disney. Harvey Weinstein, the co-chairman of Miramax, along with his brother Bob, was instantly fascinated by the script, and the company took over its production. Although Tarantino originally wrote the role for Samuel L. Jackson, during the casting the actor had a competitor, Paul Calderon. Quentin Tarantino was impressed by Paul's audition and already intended to give this role to him. This cast a shadow on Jackson's audition, who mistook it for an ordinary script reading and did not show everything he was capable of. However, Weinstein convinced Samuel to try auditioning a second time. Jackson spent hours on the plane marking up the script, figuring out the relationship of the characters. He landed shortly before lunch, not even realizing that Calderon had also flown in from New York for a new audition stage on the same day. Calderon was supposed to be the first to audition. Samuel was the second, but Tarantino was delayed and arrived late, which caused Calderon to lose his composure. They went into the audition room and one of the producers started reading the script with Paul. Looking back, the actor understands that even then he should have refused. He could not repeat the same rhythm that he had at the first audition. Calderon recalls, "At the end, I said, I give up." Samuel was no less tired and angry, but he also got hungry during the flight and decided to buy a takeaway burger on the way to the studio. When he came to the studio, there was no one there, and it would have been better to keep it that way because when people came back, someone said, "I love your work, Mr. Fishburne." It was like a slow burn, Jackson recalled. He doesn't know who I am? I was kind of like, fuck it. At that point, I really didn't care. Jackson went into the audition room, being already at the limit of anger. In comes Sam with a burger in his hand and a drink in the other hand and stinking like fast food. Me and Quentin and Lawrence were sitting on the couch and he walked in and just started sipping that shake and biting that burger and looking at all of us. I was scared shitless. I thought that this guy was going to shoot a gun right through my head. His eyes were popping out of his head, and he just stole the part. And according to Lawrence Bender, Samuel was exactly the guy we saw in the movie. He asked if they were going to give this role to someone else and joked, "I'm going to blow you motherfuckers away." Tarantino made sure that it was not for nothing that he initially chose Samuel. The anger on his face was so real. And when I got back to New York, I was still pissed. Bender told me not to worry, everything was cool, the job was mine, and he said the one thing that sealed it was they never knew how the movie was going to end until I did the last scene in the diner. Paul Calderon was not left without a role and performed in the film. Paul, a bartender at Marcellus's social club, as well as Marcellus's assistant. And in one scene, he said to Travolta and Jackson's characters, "Hey, my name's Paul, and this shit's between y'all." Meanwhile, more than one funny incident occurred on the set. According to the script, Jules originally had a giant afro, but Tarantino's assistant mistakenly bought a jerry-curled wig. Tarantino was furious, but Jackson convinced him to stick with the hairstyle, as it was gaining popularity thanks to the rap group NWA. He tried on a wig, and Quentin liked this image. The scene in which Jules turned over the table was improvised by Samuel L. Jackson, and Frank Whaley's reaction was sincere. They continued filming, and as a result, the scene was shot in one take. And what can we say about the cult quote taken from Ezekiel 25:17 in the Old Testament?
"And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee."
One of the most iconic scenes of the film was invented by Quentin together with Samuel. and Jackson learned this quote by heart. Since then, in various evening shows and interviews, the actor was repeatedly asked to pronounce it, and he did it with pleasure. The premiere of Pulp Fiction was in May 1994 at the Cannes Film Festival. The film caused a furore, receiving the Palme d'Or, the main prize of the festival, which caused a further wave of publicity. He found tremendous success with both critics and viewers. The ratings of the picture were on top. It collected almost $214 million at the worldwide box office, despite the fact that with advertising costs, the picture cost the studio only $18 million. Pulp Fiction received 7 Oscar nominations. Jackson received a nomination for Best Supporting Actor, as well as a Golden Globe nomination, and won the BAFTA Award for Best Supporting Role. Tarantino also got the Oscar for Best Screenplay and struck up a friendship with Samuel L. Jackson for a long time. Thanks to this picture, their career shot up rapidly and elevated them to the rank of significant personalities in the world of cinema. Pulp Fiction not only became a cult classic, but also had a great impact on the author's independent cinema, restarted Travolta's career, and launched the careers of Samuel L. Jackson, Uma Thurman, and Tarantino. Many consider the film a real magnum opus of the director.
And actually, by the time it was over, I was actually sitting there, and there were tears running down my face when it was over. I was just so pleased that I was part of that particular film. Now, at the moment, I thought, I was overwhelmed by, being at the Cannes Film Festival, the size of that screen there. The screen in that place is enormous. I mean, my name must have been like 6 feet tall on the screen. But I never felt that satisfied and that kind of full about a performance and about being part of something as I was of that in that particular moment.
Also that year, the actor was nominated for a Golden Globe Award for Best Actor in the historical television drama Against the Wall, where he played the role of a prison inmate, Jamal X, who befriended a correctional officer, Kyle MacLachlan's character. The film was released on HBO, where it received almost unanimous critical acclaim, but it did not find more success. After Pulp Fiction, Samuel faced a small acting crisis. Many people wanted to make their own Pulp Fiction, but the actor did not want to be a hostage of one role and was looking for something new for himself. So he got the roles in the failed Kiss of Death, The Great White Hype, and Losing Isaiah. For these films, the actor received negative reviews from the same critics who recently praised his performance in Tarantino's movie. At the same time, he continued to receive scripts similar to Pulp Fiction. I could easily have made a career out of playing Jules over the years. Everybody's always sending me the script they think is the new Pulp Fiction. The series of failures ended when Samuel met Bruce Willis again on the screen, with whom they were partners on the set of Pulp Fiction. So, in 1995, he appeared in the sequel about NYPD Lieutenant John McClane, Die Hard with a Vengeance, playing the role of John's casual partner, Zeus Carver. In the story, they have to catch a criminal who planted bombs in New York to steal gold bars from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Initially, the role of Zeus Carver was written for Lawrence Fishburne, but he got stuck in negotiations with producer Andy Vajda, as he wanted a higher fee. By the way, before that, he had refused the role of Jules, since he did not consider it the main role, and his representatives wanted him to play only the main roles. As a result, while he was at the stage of discussing payment, the Cannes premiere of Pulp Fiction took place, and Andy Vajda visited it to support Bruce Willis. There, he saw Samuel L. Jackson and immediately decided to give him the role. The actor was excited as he said he had seen the first Die Hard maybe 30 times. He later said that Zeus was the closest character to his personality of any that he had played.
Morning. Morning. You having a nice day, sir? You feeling all right? Not to get too personal, but a white man standing in the middle of Harlem wearing a sign that says, "I hate niggers," has either got some serious personal issues or not all his dogs are barking.
Lawrence Fishburne then filed a lawsuit against Vajda for breach of agreements and received a settlement only 2 years later. Meanwhile, the film was released in cinemas and made a box office breakthrough. Die Hard with a Vengeance collected more than $366 million, becoming the highest-grossing film of that year. He was ahead of that previous part and is considered by many to be the best in the series. And which part of Die Hard do you like the most? Share your opinion in the comments. The following year, the success for Samuel L. Jackson was the legal drama film A Time to Kill, directed by Joel Schumacher, based on John Grisham's 1989 novel of the same name. Jackson played a father who was being tried for a murder committed out of revenge for his daughter.
I figure there's a lot of people out there tired of all the raping, killing. They'd be sympathetic to a man who took the law in his own hands, even if he is black.
The film received generally positive reviews, collecting $152 million with $40 million spent. It even more revealed Samuel's deep acting potential. For his role, he received the NAACP Image for Best Supporting Actor in a Motion Picture and a Golden Globe nomination. In just 2 years, Samuel has achieved heights that he could not reach for 2 decades. Being a box office star, the actor appeared more often in the main roles and chose himself where it was better to act. However, not all pictures became successful. So he played the role of a devoted teacher who sought to impress his students in the crime thriller 187. The film failed. But the directorial debut of Kasi Lemon's the Southern Gothic drama Eve's Bayou, where Jackson acted as both the lead actor and producer, turned out to be successful. The actor joined the project after reading the script when the film was still in question. But soon the independent company Trimark Pictures took over its production and allocated a budget of $4 million. The picture told about the problems of the Batiste family, and Jackson played the role of the father of the Lewis family. Louis Batiste was definitely someone I hadn't seen before, a family man with interesting conflicts and a romantic and glamorous life. I don't get to play those kinds of guys. The film earned $14.8 million at the box office, becoming the highest-grossing independent film of that year. At the same time, it got many different nominations and received several awards, among which several went to Samuel as the Best Actor. It also received the Independent Spirit Award for Best First Feature alongside first-time writer/director Kasi Lemmons. In the same 1997, Samuel reappeared in Quentin Tarantino's film, and not for the last time. He played the arms dealer Ordell Robbie in the crime movie Jackie Brown, based on Elmore Leonard's 1992 novel Rum Punch. His partners in the project were Pam Grier and Robert Forster, and Robert De Niro played a secondary but no less important role.
Hi, Vic. I need you to look up the booking
All right,
card
man, cool.
and rough arrest.
We almost done here, right?
Getting there.
Yo.
I need you to look up.
You check out some music while you're sitting in the car. Take the keys.
Which one's for the car?
This one right here. Use that little black thing there to turn off your alarm and unlock the door.
What do I do?
You ain't gotta do nothing, man. Just point it at the car, push the button, you hear a little ooh, ooh, ooh. That means the door's unlocked and the alarm's off. Get in.
The idea to give his character long hair and a braided beard belonged to Samuel L. Jackson. Already at this moment, it became known what was the reason for such a frequency of changing hairstyles, because Samuel changed them not only in Tarantino films. The fact was that he started going bald early enough, but he wasn't particularly worried about it. I keep ending up on those bald is beautiful lists. It's cool. You know, when I started losing my hair, it was during the era when everybody had lots of hair. All of a sudden, I felt this big hole in the middle of my afro. I couldn't face having a comb over, so I had to quickly figure out what the haircut for me was. The actor got rid of his hair and began to use his bald head as a springboard for experiments. Stylist and personal wig consultant Robert L. Stevenson has helped him in it for many years. Still, different hairstyles are a great way to transform into a memorable character, like he did it in Jackie Brown. The actor considers this film his favorite in the work of Quentin Tarantino, and of course, he doesn't swear anywhere like he does in Tarantino's films. Therefore, in Jackie Brown, the catchphrase "motherfucker" sounds 37 times. The main filming of Jackson's scenes took place on weekends, as on weekdays he worked on other projects like Sphere, directed by Barry Levinson, where he had to improvise a lot. Jackie Brown was well received by viewers and critics, grossing $74.7 million at the box office with a budget of $12 million. The picture revived Grier and Forster's careers, neither of whom had played the main roles for many years. Forster was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, and Jackson and Grier received Golden Globe nominations. But the most interesting thing was that the film brought Samuel the Silver Bear for Best Actor at the Berlin International Film Festival. The following year, he appeared on screen with Dustin Hoffman and Sharon Stone in the sci-fi psychological thriller Sphere. Samuel played the role of mathematician Dr. Harry Adams, who joined the expert group to work with an alien spacecraft. He also played with Kevin Spacey again in the thriller The Negotiator. The act Negotiators until Jackson's character was made to resort to hostage-taking himself. Both pictures found moderate success, but Samuel was on top. Back in 1996, the actor unexpectedly received an offer that was difficult to refuse. Against the background of passing films in Samuel L. Jackson's career, the much brighter and larger project appeared. Yeah, now it's time to talk about Star Wars. Director George Lucas invited the actor to play the role of Jedi Master Mace Windu in the new part of the franchise, Star Wars Episode I: The Phantom Menace. In an interview, Jackson admitted that he did not even have the opportunity to read the script sent to him as he was busy with other filming and did not know what the character he would perform until he received his costume. According to him, he was ready to accept the offer of any role just to become part of the Star Wars saga. Since the preparation for the filming of the movie started 3 years before its release, Tupac Shakur was also considered for the role of Mace Windu. At the same time, Jackson was initially considered for the role of Grando Calrissian, the father of the Empire Strikes Back character Lando Calrissian, but then this option disappeared.
Do not believe the Sith could have returned without us knowing.
Ah, hard to see the dark side is.
We will use all our resources to unravel this mystery. We will discover the identity of your attacker. May the Force be with you.
Starting with The Phantom Menace in 1999, Jackson played the role of Mace Windu in the entire Star Wars prequel trilogy. He appeared 3 years later on the screen in Episode II, Attack of the Clones, where his minor role turned into one of the central ones, in Episode III, Revenge of the Sith, in 2005, and of course, he reprised this role in later parts as well. Is it needless to say what technological breakthrough did the first and second episodes of Star Wars have on cinema in general? Surprisingly, by the end of the 90s, the actor's fees were calculated in millions of dollars for the project. But Jackson agreed to play a small cameo for free and was not even listed in the credits in Steven Soderbergh's 1998 crime comedy Out of Sight, starring George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez. On June 13, 2000, Samuel L. Jackson was honored with his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, which is located at 7018 Hollywood Boulevard. The new decade began rapidly for the actor. He appeared in the war legal drama Rules of Engagement, where his partner on the set was Tommy Lee Jones. Samuel played the role of U.S. Marine Colonel Terry Childers, who appeared before a military tribunal after a brutal order to soldiers near the U.S. Embassy in Yemen. Then he reunited with Bruce Willis for the third time in the supernatural thriller Unbreakable, directed by M. Night Shyamalan. Jackson played the role of Elijah Price, also known as Mr. Glass, a comic book theorist and deranged domestic terrorist with brittle bone disease. Initially, Shyamalan began writing the script for the film during the post-production of The Sixth Sense, where Bruce Willis was the main star.
Have you ever tried to develop it?
I don't know what you're asking me.
The skill.
Look, I gotta be down on the sidelines during the game. You can get to your seat right down here.
Characters in comics are often attributed special powers, invisibility, X-ray vision, things of that sort.
Okay. I don't want to play this game anymore.
It's an exaggeration of the truth.
He offered Bruce the lead role in a new film and wrote it already with a thought of Willis and Jackson. And when Bruce accidentally met Samuel L. Jackson at a casino in Casablanca, he told him about a new script that was being written just for both of them. In the film, Samuel L. Jackson wears purple clothes, which is the actor's favorite color. That's why he had a purple lightsaber in Star Wars. This was the result of Jackson's suggestion. He wanted to be sure that his character would stand out in a crowded battle. According to the actor, the words "bad motherfucker" were engraved on the hilt of his lightsaber, as on Jules Winfield's wallet in Pulp Fiction. The glass cane that Elijah Price used in Unbreakable was also Samuel's idea. As you have already understood, this guy did not come to projects empty-handed and often brought interesting ideas to films. Perhaps thanks to this, the actor's fee amounted to $7 million. Interestingly, at the end of the film, Jackson's character was sitting in his wheelchair under 3 comic book covers. Thor was on the left, Daredevil was on the right, and Nick Fury from S.H.I.E.L.D. was next to them. Was it a coincidence that he had yet to play the role of Nick Fury in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where he had a team including Thor? Write what you think about in the comments. Unbreakable received positive reviews and praise for its direction, script, aesthetics, performance, cinematography, and realistic view of the superhero genre. The film became successful and subsequently a cult classic, having collected $248.1 million at the box office with a budget of $75 million. Many consider it one of Shyamalan's best works and one of the best superhero films. In 2011, Time magazine ranked it 4th in the top 10 superhero films of all time. Even Quentin Tarantino once made it into the top 20 films. Many years later, Unbreakable turned into a whole series of psychological horror and superhero thrillers called the Unbreakable Trilogy, also known as East Trail 177 Trilogy. And Samuel, along with Bruce, returned to their roles in the third part of 2019 called Glass.
You were the last person I need to see today. You see this camera? There are 100 more of these. Out of respect for your cognitive abilities, I have installed cameras on every floor.
In the same 2000, Samuel appeared in the remake of the action crime thriller film Shaft. He played the role of Detective John Shaft, the nephew of John Shaft from the previous movie. The actor's partners on the set were Vanessa Williams, Jeffrey Wright, Christian Bale, and Busta Rhymes. By the way, throughout his career, Jackson has starred in more films with popular rappers than anyone. He has played with Tupac Shakur, Queen Latifah, Method Man, LL Cool J, Busta Rhymes, Eve, Ice Cube, Exhibit, David Banner, and 50 Cent. Shaft paid off at the box office, and like Unbreakable, received a sequel in 2019 where Samuel reprised his role. However, this time it didn't work out and the film failed, collecting only $21.4 million with a budget of $35 million. Next, Jackson played the role of National Security Agent Augustus Gibbons, appearing with Vin Diesel in the movie XXX, directed by Rob Cohen. According to the plot, Samuel's character could give Diesel's character, Cage, a pardon for his crimes, and he used this as leverage to recruit him for the mission. He knew that Cage was the only person who could successfully complete the mission.
That's good. That's very good.
Okay, it's your turn. Pretty boy. What the hell is going on here?
It was a test, Mr. Cage, that you aced.
Critics rated the film mediocre, but the audience liked it, and over time it became a cult classic. The film grossed $277.4 million at the box office with $88.3 million costs. The studio was pleased with the result and immediately made a sequel in which Samuel L. Jackson reprised the role of Augustus Gibbons. The second part, without Vin Diesel, failed at the box office. A few years later, the actor took over the series and released the third, the most successful part, XXX: Return of Xander Cage. Samuel reprised his role, and the movie also received mediocre reviews from critics, and the film, with a budget of $85 million, was able to earn $346.1 million. Jackson also appeared in the HBO comedy Unchained Memories, based on a collection of stories of former slaves. The actor acted as a narrator along with many other stars, such as Angela Bassett and Whoopi Goldberg. In the same 2003, Samuel played the role of a police sergeant in the remake of the TV show SWAT. He played along with Colin Farrell, Michelle Rodriguez, LL Cool J, Jeremy Renner, and others. The picture was quite successful, but the most interesting thing was the soundtrack of the picture, written by Hot Action Cop in Jackson honor and named Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson.
It is worth noting that most of Sammy's pictures collected perfectly at the box office and the actor himself was on top of them. But no one was immune from failure, and the psychological thriller Twisted, in which Samuel played with Ashley Judd and Andy Garcia, received a 2% approval rating, and reviewers called the actor's performance lackluster and futile. With a budget of $50 million, the picture collected only $41 million and became one of the biggest failures of the actor in this decade. Soon, the animated film The Incredibles from Pixar Animation Studios was released, which was already extremely successful and collected over $630 million with a budget of $95 million. Jackson played the role of Lucius Best, also known as Frozone, the best friend of the main character who had the ability to create ice from moisture. Why did he voice this particular character? Director Brad Bird stated that he wanted the character to have the coolest voice. Do you know what nickname Samuel has in Hollywood? The King of Cool, or as it was also called by various publishers, the coolest man in Hollywood. That's because he always gets the coolest characters. The project received an approval rating of 97%, and Jackson's game earned him a nomination for the Annie Awards for Best Voice Acting. It so happened that in 2004, Samuel L. Jackson starred simultaneously in the most highly acclaimed and most criticized films in his career. Samuel liked voicing an animated film, and in general, he loved cartoons and voiced them more than once. Answering popular questions from the internet, he admitted,
Does Samuel L. Jackson like anime?
Yes, I do. Hentai too.
Work on The Incredibles has already become the second step before the gates to the world of superhero cinema. The cartoon had parallels with some superhero comics like Powers, Watchmen, Fantastic Four, Justice League, and the Avengers, and Samuel met the latter shortly. By the way, in 2018, he reprised his role of Frozone in the acclaimed sequel to the movie Incredibles 2, which grossed $1,243 million. Meanwhile, Samuel played a cameo role in Quentin Tarantino's new film Kill Bill Volume 2. The neo-Western martial arts film was about a bride, played by Uma Thurman, who went on a path of revenge against the deadly Viper assassination squad to get to their leader Bill, who tried to kill her. Samuel played the role of an organist named Rufus, who was supposed to perform at the wedding of the heroine Uma Thurman.
Y'all got a song? How about Love Me Tender? I can play that.
Sure.
In 2005, Jackson starred in the biographical teen sports drama film Coach Carter, based on a true story about Richmond High School basketball coach Ken Carter. Samuel played the role of the coach, and his acting was highly appreciated by critics. Among other things, thanks to him, the film became successful and was nominated for many different awards. Samuel won in the Outstanding Actor in a Motion Picture category at the 37th NAACP Image Awards, and the real Ken Carter was present on the set and praised Jackson's efforts. On November 4th of the same year, he was presented with the Hawaii International Film Festival Achievement in Acting Award. Just 3 months later, on January 30th, 2006, Jackson was honored with the Hand and Footprint ceremony at Grauman's Chinese Theater. He became the 7th Black American and the 191st actor to receive such recognition. In an interview the same year, he said, "I choose roles that are exciting to watch and have an interesting character inside of a story. And in my roles, I wanted to do things I hadn't done, things I saw as a kid and wanted to do and now have an opportunity to do." Soon, the actor appeared on the screen in the horror film Snakes on a Plane, which acquired cult status a few months before its release, only based on the name and cast. By the way, Jackson decided to star in the film solely because of its name. He played the role of FBI agent Neville Flynn. In the future, to reinforce the expectation of the film, he also starred in the music video Snakes on a Plane, Bring It by Cobra Starship. And in the same year, he was awarded the German Bambi Award for International Film for his numerous appearances in movies. One can say for his contribution to cinema. By that time, Samuel L. Jackson's track record was rapidly approaching 100 films. In 2007, Samuel played in the psychological horror film 1408, based on Stephen King's short story of the same name. The story was about a skeptical paranormal hunter who decided to settle in a cursed hotel room to prove that this was just fiction. Jackson played the role of the hotel manager Gerald Allen, who managed to warn the skeptic that over the past 95 years, no one had lasted more than an hour in the room.
But we operate at 90% capacity, always. And my concern here is not for the hotel.
Critics rated the film average and did not particularly praise it, but it proved to be quite successful at the box office and made $133 million box office with a budget of $25 million. In addition, in the same year, Samuel worked on the parody nature documentary Farce of the Penguins as a voiceover narrator. This experience came in handy when Quentin Tarantino again invited him to work as a voiceover narrator on the World War II film Inglourious Basterds. Of course, there were only a few scenes, but Quentin loves Samuel madly as an actor and found him a place even in such a stellar picture with Brad Pitt, Christopher Waltz, Michael Fassbender, Eli Roth, Diane Kruger, Daniel Bruhl, Til Schweiger, and others.
The High Command decided to send him back to Berlin to be made an example of. Needless to say, once the bastards heard about him, he never got there.
The film was extremely successful both among critics and the audience, becoming the highest-grossing film of the director at that time and earning many awards. But since the days of Pulp Fiction, Samuel still was to play his most striking roles in Tarantino's work. Meanwhile, an unexpected premiere for many took place on the screens. Not even a movie, but a full-fledged universe in which Samuel L. Jackson found himself for the next 10 years. After performing a brief cameo in a superhero movie, he passed the final step before plunging into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And before telling about the most recent period in Samuel's life, we remind you that you can subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done it. We see that many people watch our videos without a subscription. By subscribing, you will not only not miss new interesting videos about your most talented idols, but also help us promote these videos to a larger number of viewers. YouTube loves it when people subscribe, and we love it, so please subscribe, click on the bell, and everything will be cool. And we continue. In 2002, Jackson gave his consent to Marvel Comics to develop a new version of the character Nick Fury in his likeness for The Ultimates, a limited series that saw many of Marvel's heroes reimagined. But it's worth telling how exactly this happened. The fact was that initially Mark Miller and artist Brian Hitch, without the consent of the actor, turned the white, gray-haired Nick Fury as he was portrayed before into a black bald man who looks exactly like Samuel L. Jackson. Seeing his resemblance to a comic book character, Samuel contacted Marvel and instead of making a scandal, asked for a role in any possible movie. They said, "Yeah, we are planning on making movies and we do hope you'll be a part of them." That's what happened. In 2008, he played a cameo in the superhero movie Iron Man, appearing in the scene after the credits in this image of Fury.
Jarvis.
Welcome, Holmes.
I am Iron Man. You think you're the only superhero in the world? Mr. Stark, you become part of a bigger universe. You just don't know it yet. Who the hell are you? Nick Fury.
After the rapid success of Iron Man in February 2009, Samuel signed a contract with Marvel Studios for as many as 9 films with his participation. But the creator of this version of the character, Mark Miller, felt guilty for a long time for simply redrawing Fury from Samuel. A few years later, he admitted what happened when he met the actor on the set of Kingsman: The Secret Service. The first thing I said was, I hope you don't mind me completely exploiting your appearance in my book 13 years back. And he said, no man, thanks for the 9-picture deal. The audience fell in love with a tough, charismatic agent Nick Fury, played by Jackson from the very first films, such as Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, the First Avenger, and the Avengers stars. Many actors said that comics and Wikipedia helped them prepare for their roles, but Samuel L. Jackson had a completely different reaction. When asked how he prepared, Jackson said, I watched David Hasselhoff and decided I was not going to do any of that. Whedon explained to other interview participants that Hasselhoff played the role of Nick Fury in a low-budget TV movie and then jokingly added, he wasn't available, so we got Sam. Then the actor reprised the role in Captain America: The Winter Soldier and Avengers: Age of Ultron. He also appeared in an earlier, rejuvenated version of Nick Fury in Captain Marvel alongside Brie Larson, with whom he had previously had to work. And he played cameos in the final parts of Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame. Nine projects were released with stunning speed and colossal success. The films of the Avengers franchise have grossed over $7.5 billion at the box office. But Samuel continued to appear and voice other Marvel Studio projects. There was Spider-Man: Far From Home, several episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He also voiced Nick Fury in the game Iron Man 2 and alternative versions of the character in the animated series What If. And it wasn't his first time voicing games. He already had experience voicing the character of Officer Frank Tenpenny in the cult video game Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Interestingly, Stan Lee, being a writer and author of original comics and Marvel characters, was the most profitable actor of all time because of the large number of cameos. He wasn't a highly paid actor but collected huge box offices, and for a long time, Samuel L. Jackson has been breathing down his back, taking second place. However, if you ignore these episodic appearances and consider only live-action roles, Jackson becomes the most profitable actor in the world. After all, as of 2022, according to the data attained by the Golden Globe, the total box office of his films has reached an astronomical sum of $27 billion collected in 152 films. By the way, many actors admit that they can't stand looking at themselves on the screen, so attending premiere screenings for them is something like torture. For the same reason, they try to limit themselves to just one watching of the movies with their participation. Jackson is not like that. He loves to enjoy the results of his work. It's not enough for him to just watch a film with his own participation at the premiere. Often after that, he buys tickets to regular film sessions to admire himself a couple more times. The actor admitted that the main regret of his youth was the lack of an opportunity to look at his acting in productions from the outside. Even during my theater years, I wished I could watch the plays I was in while I was in them. I dig watching myself work. In addition, Jackson has enough self-irony to wear funny t-shirts with his own face or with his movie characters. He has a whole collection of similar t-shirts. Recently, the actor reprised the role of Nick Fury in the new Marvel Cinematic Universe series Secret Invasion, which was released exclusively on Disney+. Marvel first drew attention to the fact that Nick Fury is also black, having grown up in America. He talked to the writers of Secret Invasion about how his considerable strength as a black American could decrease at any moment due to outside forces, and the plot of one episode of the series was written based on a story told to the screenwriters by Samuel. I used to take the train every summer from Chattanooga, Tennessee to Washington, D.C. I couldn't go in a dining car because it's segregated. When they put me on the train, they gave me a shoebox with food in it, then I ate that food. We used things that were real for me as a person to give Nick Fury the kind of history that he has, to inform the story in a real way about, how he wasn't always this powerful, or he does look at America in another kind of way. According to the director of the series, it wasn't on the page, it was him telling us a story. He's very connected to Nick Fury in a way that no writer ever could be. Soon, Jackson will reappear on the big screen in his most famous image in the movie, The Marvels. It will tell about Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, and Miss Marvel. The premiere of the film is scheduled for November 10th, 2023. But in addition to superhero projects, Samuel L. Jackson also appeared in 2 more Quentin Tarantino films. In 2012, he played the role of Stephen Warren, a butler slave loyal to racist slave owner Monsieur Calvin J. Candy in the revisionist Western film Django Unchained. The story was about a slave played by Jamie Foxx, who traveled and trained with a German bounty hunter, Christopher Waltz's character, with the ultimate goal of finding and saving his long-lost wife. Interesting fact. During the filming of one of the dinner scenes, Leonardo DiCaprio was made to stop the scene because it was difficult for him to use so many racist insults. Then Samuel L. Jackson took him aside and as a support said, "Motherfucker, this is just another Tuesday for us." Despite all kinds of cruelty and controversy of the picture, critics were delighted and rated it with the highest scores. The project has been rated in various top 10 best films according to many publishers, critics, and the American Film Institute. He received many awards, but all the main laurels went to Christopher Waltz. The box office grossed $426 million worldwide, with a production budget of $100 million. Thus, Django Unchained became Tarantino's highest-grossing film at that time. In 2015, another project of the director with Samuel in the title role, the Western mystery thriller film The Hateful Eight, was released. This time, the events took place in the winter setting of the American Civil War and told about 8 strangers who sought refuge from a blizzard in Minnie's haberdashery. Samuel played the role of Major Marquis Warren, allegedly personally knowing President Lincoln.
You starting to see pictures, ain't you? Yo, boy. Black dude's dingus in his mouth. Him shaking, him crying, me laughing. And him not understanding.
After the script leaked online, Quentin Tarantino didn't want to make the film. Instead, he arranged script readings in Los Angeles, and the actors were insanely stunned and excited that no one would see this movie. Then, Samuel L. Jackson talked to Quentin and convinced him to make the film anyway. Unfortunately, during the planned filming in Telluride, Colorado, the weather had been fine for a long time. The large fans and starch were used to recreate the artificial blizzard. The large overhead filters protecting from the sun were used in outdoor snowstorm shots. A large amount of much-needed snow melted and production was suspended. Many actors and crew members, including Tarantino, Samuel L. Jackson, and Kurt Russell, took part in the local burning of skis, making an offering to the snow gods as a funny attempt to cause snow. By coincidence, or maybe not by chance, a strong storm started a couple days later and enough snow fell. It was possible to continue shooting. And although Jackson did not swear as much in this film as in Tarantino's first works, the cumulative number of swearing during the actor's entire career elevated him to the number of record holders.
There's a list of someone who said the most swear words in movie history. And I was like, oh yeah.
Who won?
It's not you. It's Jonah Hill.
That's some bull. I mean, that's I mean, no.
However, if not all the swear words were counted but the specific one, Samuel would be the undisputed champion. He learned to use it in absolutely any situation and express any emotions with it. According to him, it all depends on what you mean and in what context the character is. If an expletive is uttered out of surprise or is said by a character with anger, it sounds different than when the character says it to someone about whom he worries and cares.
I'll try.
Say it to me like I'm the person you love most in the world.
I love you so much, mother.
So you think love's a joke. So you treat love like a joke. I'm serious about you, and you're treating love like a joke. See, if I was to say that to you to let you know how much I loved you, it'd be like, God, I love you.
That was so good. How can you put that word in a sentence like that? And it actually sounds so amazing.
There's another way to make you even feel better if I said it.
Okay,
Despite the fact that The Hateful Eight is the 6th joint work of the actor and director, Samuel received the highest score from critics for the first time in Tarantino's film. The picture was again highly appreciated by viewers and critics, although it did not have such a commercial success as Django Unchained. Soon, Jackson appeared on the screen in the large-scale blockbuster Kong Skull Island, directed by Jordan Vogt-Roberts. He played the role of United States Army Lieutenant Colonel and Sky Devils helicopter squadron leader Preston Packard. The actor compared the character to Captain Ahab from Moby Dick. He does have to exact some measure of revenge for the people he lost. That's just the nature of how we operate. Eye for an eye. The film takes place in 1973. A group of scientists and soldiers go to the unexplored Skull Island and meet Kong, a giant monkey who was the last representative of its kind. The film cost $185 million, but grossed $566.6 million at the box office. And Jackson's partners on the set were his old friends from the Marvel Universe, Tom Hiddleston and Brie Larson. By the way, Samuel was on good friendly terms with Brie Larson and agreed to play in her directorial debut, Unicorn Store. He played the role of the mysterious salesman, although according to Brie Larson, Jackson played himself in the film. The fantasy comedy drama was released on Netflix and was met with average ratings and reviews.
Come in. Come in. You want a Diet Coke? You like those, right?
What is this place? Who are you?
You have come to the store, Kit. And I am the salesman.
Of the actor's recent appearances on the big screen, one can also name the horror film Spiral, directed by Darren Lynn Bousman. It was an attempt to restart the Saw series. The actor had only a minor role, and Chris Rock played the main one. But nevertheless, he agreed to play Chief Marcus Banks because of his interest in acting out a situation he had never found himself in before. For example, as it was in the climactic scene where his character was suspended like a puppet. The picture received mixed reviews and hardly paid off, and Samuel L. Jackson, after an 11-year absence from the stage, returned to Broadway as Doker Charles in a revival of August Wilson's The Piano Lesson, opposite John David Washington and Danielle Brooks. This modern production was directed by his wife, LaTanya Richardson Jackson, and for his performance, Samuel got the Tony Award for Best Featured Actor in a Play nomination. Samuel L. Jackson has played in a huge number of projects, voiced many characters, and also acted as a producer in some. In the end, he even has his own production company, Uppity Films, which he named in memory of the words of his grandfather, who raised him and told him about signs of impotence. And although Samuel will soon turn 75, despite his age, he is not going to stop and continues to play. He played the role of a hitman in a comedy thriller, The Hitman's Bodyguard, and in the failed sequel, Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. He also got the role in the drama series produced by Apple TV+, The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray, based on the novel of the same name by Walter Mosley. For this role, Jackson was nominated for the Critics' Choice Awards. In addition, Samuel has already planned the production of the live-action film adaptation of Afro Samurai, in which he participated in the voice acting in the mid-90s. At the same time, the actor is worried about his health, and in 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, he personally urged people to wear masks as part of the California campaign, Your Actions Save Lives. Together with Dwayne Johnson, he also urged those who recovered from COVID-19 to donate their blood to help others fight the virus. And later, he appeared on Jimmy Kimmel Live to read Stay the Fuck at Home, the satirical book about social distancing. In an interview with the Evening Standard in 2019, the actor revealed that his family had suffered from Alzheimer's disease for years. I've been surrounded by Alzheimer's most of my life. My grandfather was my best friend growing up, so it was heartbreaking for me to see him not know who I was. It is so cruel, having someone who has nurtured you and taken care of you reach a point where they can't even recall your name. The actor said that the same thing happened to his mother when she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. It was with her mother, her brother, her sister, and Samuel's paternal aunt. And in 2019, Jackson became the new face of Alzheimer's Research UK's #ShareTheOrange campaign, which aims to debunk the idea that dementia is just a normal part of aging. This is not the only charity he's involved in. A few years earlier, Jackson appeared on The Graham Norton Show to talk about his men's cancer charity, One for the Boys. In addition, he supported about 36 charitable organizations and foundations. Obviously, you begin to pay much more attention to health with age. Samuel's contribution to cinema cannot be overestimated. He is really respected by colleagues and loved by millions of viewers around the world. In 2021, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences named Jackson one of its Academy Honorary Award recipients as, quote, a cultural icon whose dynamic work has resonated across genres and generations and audiences worldwide. The following year, at the 12th Annual Governors Awards, the actor's friend Denzel Washington presented Jackson with his Oscar. Samuel L. Jackson rose from the very bottom and became one of the greatest actors of the last 2 centuries. He overcame a life-threatening addiction and, having found his vocation, does not stop to this day. He starred in more than 150 films and in several dozen TV series, suddenly becoming famous thanks to Pulp Fiction. We would like to wish Samuel good health and give the world as many more beautiful stage images on the screen. And if you are interested in the fate of other heroes of Tarantino's masterpiece, you can click on the video that appeared on your screen. There were many diverse characters played by Harvey Keitel, Tim Roth, John Travolta, and other actors. What happened to their lives after Pulp Fiction? How did their destinies turn out? Watch the video, and in a few minutes, you will find answers to all questions. And that's all for today. We will be grateful if you like this video. It was Biographer. See you soon.